Hello, everyone. This is Jeffrey Tiefer-Tiller back with another, I was going to say Service Management Leadership podcast, but you know it's been replaced by the second annual Global ITAM Summit. Today's guest, today's breakout session is Alexander Golev, our Microsoft licensing expert. Alexander, how are you?
I'm all right. Thank you, Jeffrey. How are you?
I am awesome. I really enjoyed our panel discussion. I enjoyed a lot of the topics just because we heard so many different voices talking about the same thing. So it was really interesting. In that panel discussion, you talked about SPLA, S-P-L-A. In case our audience doesn't know what that is or means, can you explain it? And you also mentioned it might go away. Why do you think it might go away, and why should people even care?
It is a multifaceted subject. Yes. Because SPLA licensing really affects the providers. It was designed for providers, for them to be able to provide services to end customers. End customers should still care because that's one of the ways for them to procure Microsoft services or software. They can order it from, and probably the best example would be, you go to Amazon AWS. Everybody knows that, Amazon AWS. Azure is a different beast, a bit. And you rent a Windows Server virtual machine, maybe with a SQL Server database. If you don't bring your own licenses, and you bring your own license for Windows Server, you rent it from Azure, that is your SPLA license. And as Amazon, in this case, AWS, is a SPLA provider. So what is happening right now is Microsoft are quietly, it's because it's not a public knowledge. It's not something that's been advertised. SPLA topic, if you look at my channel, Some Expert TV, SPLA videos are the least watched videos because it's not a very popular subject. But Microsoft are reducing the number of SPLA providers. Somebody told me yesterday, this is unofficial, that there's a target to remove about 3/4 of them, the smallest, the least important ones. It will be very difficult for Microsoft to get rid of SPLA completely because, well, there's Amazon. Amazon is the biggest SPLA provider in the world, and they generate a lot of revenue for Microsoft. So I don't believe that's going to completely disappear, but it's being reduced. And if I'm an end customer, should I really care about it? I probably should, because the program will be somehow quietly, probably not very quietly, they will announce it. It will be reduced, it will be collapsed, it will be reduced to a certain manageable size. Maybe only a few providers will be authorized to be part of that. So then I think the majority of the customers would have to start thinking, instead of thinking of renting something from their, next door SPLA provider, service provider, maybe they should actually migrate to the cloud, to Azure. It's a change in paradigm for me.
Yes.
Appreciating that some countries are migrating to the cloud faster, some countries are slower. It's happening. And Microsoft are trying to accelerate that migration to what they call the actual cloud, which basically means just the biggest corporations having huge data centers. That, for an end customer, it's still paying for services, whether they pay to their friend with a data center or they pay to Microsoft, it's the same. It's the same. And the licenses, not many are aware, but you can bring some of your internal licenses, not all of them. You can bring to a provider estate, or you can bring them to Azure, to AWS. It's going to be almost the same anyway. So you will still be able to bring your licenses to a cloud environment, the ones that you've invested in. But slowly it will migrate to some sort of ongoing, daily, monthly, annual fee anyway. That's where we're all going to in the next 15 years. It's not going to happen quicker. We'll all be there. So going back to your question, it was probably a long intro, but I think the end customers are not that very much affected, but those who maybe now consider going into the data center provider business, I would probably consider something else. Unless you want to become purely a Linux-based, non-Microsoft, because the process of being authorized as a supply provider, and especially like to get the full authorization, it's become very, very difficult. And I think that's by design.
Yes.
I should probably stop here because I can talk about this topic for hours.
All right. So two things. SPLA, to me, I heard service provider licensing agreement. Is that what it is?
Correct.
But I think it is by design, because if Microsoft can push people to the cloud and get the subscription revenue instead of the on-prem, that's their goal anyway, isn't it?
Well, they do have ongoing revenue through SPLA providers, but it's not transparent to them.
Right.
The only audits that Microsoft are running right now, like proper audits, full-size audits involving big four partners all around the world, well, I'm saying I would say the most audits are in the supply area, because where firstly, that's an easy target for them. Providers are an easy target. You have one data center with hundreds of customers at the same time. Right. And then providers make so many mistakes in managing supply. There's always something for Microsoft people to find there. And what they do, they come with an audit, they audit them, they find non-compliance, and then basically what they say is just don't pay. I mean, that's what it's going through the negotiation process. First, obviously, please pay the penalty. Please pay the penalties. Then you start negotiating, and they would say, fine, don't pay. Let's talk about the strategy. And the strategy for the providers is to take all your end customers' workloads and migrate them to Azure. Keep your customers. They will be paying you for the services and everything, but the actual workloads, hardware, everything, security will be in Azure. You manage them. Thus, Microsoft create a new network of Azure resellers. But how secure is that business? It's a big, big question. One thing is you'll probably hear, well, that's very secure because you're a Microsoft partner, but are you? And Supply is a monthly subscription. You pay monthly, so it's a constant revenue for Microsoft. It's just so not transparent, and there's so much that is lost. Microsoft are underpaid for their licenses. That's how they see that. So they probably want more control around what's going on, more visibility, more transparency, more cash.
Don't we all? And so you bring up a good point. And so there's a focus with Microsoft to move to 365, to move to Azure. In organizations with large Microsoft footprints are feeling this pressure for cost reduction, right? They're like, how can we get more for less? How can we save money? And they're looking at how do we become as efficient as possible? How would you advise at a very high level, because you and your organization, you all specialize in this, but how would you at a very high level recommend somebody that's feeling these cost pressures? How would they go about it?
There are multiple aspects, but if you want to put it in one word, is analyze. Analyze what you're using, because you'll be surprised. You know why one of the reasons I like my profession is that it almost feels like I'm a magician. If somebody believes me and then brings me into their infrastructure on their premises and gives me access to their contracts, there's always something I find which stuns people. Did we actually sign this? Oh, do we have this license we're not using? There are various ways then how you can save. You can profile your users correctly. And that not only applies to Microsoft. Look at SAP, Oracle applications. I'm not talking about technology. How do you optimize user licenses? You just look at what users are using and what they should be using and what they shouldn't be using, and then you optimize. That's how you save. That's how you cut costs. In this, especially on this Office 365 and Azure-based world where the taximeter is ticking, whether you're using the taxi or not, it's there and it's ticking and it's costing you money. That's how you optimize. That is analyze and optimize. That's how you save. Lots of dead weight. There's lots of dead weight. There's another driver for rising costs is just what new shiny things.
Yes, we like them.
And there's a big difference between want and need. So ask yourself a question. Do you just want it? Like, do you want the security features of E5 or do you need them? Maybe in the next 3 years, you don't need them. Maybe you're still using your other third-party security suppliers. Why would you pay twice? You can use it as an argument with Microsoft when Microsoft would offer you E5, say, can you early migrate, be an early adopter of something new? Use it as a value gap. I'm already paying £1 million, $1 million per year for a third-party solution that won't expire until this day. Dear Microsoft, I'll take it. I like it, but I don't want to be paying twice for the same features. So give me a discount for that period until my other contracts expire. There are ways. So we employ all kinds of things. And what shouldn't be forgotten is there's always that weight. There's always something, disabled users, inactive users, you can reduce editions. There's a tendency, it's in human psychology, to buy a bit more than you actually need.
Yes.
That's how you save. So you optimize and you negotiate. Two sides.
Yep, we always buy room to grow. And it's as though Microsoft won't sell you what you need along the way. You know what I mean? They're happy to. So if an organization has a renewal coming up, another cost pressure, very tense. Organizations really get tense because millions of dollars, millions of pounds. We have this renewal. Microsoft comes in, says it'll be X% more because it's never less, never the same. It's always more. How would you advise these organizations to prepare for an upcoming renewal besides doing it early? Preparing, I mean.
I know why you said that, because we all straight away we should get it. Start preparing early. There's a reason why we say that. But if you start late, not everything is lost.
Right.
You lose that cutting edge of being in full control, but not everything is lost. So if your renewal is in 3 months, I'm not saying you can't save, but then you need a proper strike team that will do that in a couple of weeks. Look at high level where you can save, how you can profile users, what things you don't need. Look at those shiny things you don't need to buy. You just want them, then we can take them off the list. The closer you are to the renewal, the less you can save, the more expensive team you need to hire. Let me be absolutely open and honest here. The closer you are to the renewal, the more it will cost you, the less you will save. You will still save. Can you do it yourself? Possibly. To an extent. You need to have some experience. You can probably negotiate certain things, but Microsoft is the toughest nut. It's very difficult to get a discount out of Microsoft unless you're fully prepared. And there are lots of mistakes you can make. Think about it. Their sales people, their negotiating people are trained on a daily basis on how to sell and negotiate. You're not.
Exactly. That's my.
They always have an upper hand.
Yes.
But that's it. It's possible. So you said besides starting early, the earlier you start, the more you save. And the cheap and another thing that I noticed from my experience is what you usually find when you start a bit earlier. I'm not saying ideal is the T minus 18 months prior to the renewal. Almost nobody does that. Various reasons. It's too far ahead. It's in the future. If you start 6-9 months prior, what you can find is what you can optimize in the infrastructure on the server side. And there are lots of savings there as well. But what's interesting about the server side is that I don't like the word saving. I like the word optimization and reallocation of the budget, because there is always something you need to implement. There's always something you don't have money for, but we can take that money from the things you don't need and put them into things you need. What you find if you start just a bit earlier is collateral saving. I have an example in my latest enterprise agreement live where I talk about the customer. They saved $1 million on licenses, and they saved more than 1.5 million on reducing electricity bills, hardware support, and third-party support. Those things, I didn't think about them. That was my first experience when somebody actually demonstrated me that the saving that you achieve through optimizing the infrastructure is not only in licensing. Actually, not the majority is not in licensing, in other things. That's what you get. So you and that sometimes drives the whole adoption of software asset management, hardware asset management, ITAM in organizations when they see that that's such a complex topic and there are so many things interconnected, strings attached between various things. I hope you understand what I mean.
Yes, and I would even say for our service management people out there, there's service management implication because it impacts how we deliver services to our business customers. It impacts the whole thing because if I find software running on a server that I don't need, and then I say, hey, I don't need this server. Now I saved the hardware costs. I saved the Microsoft Windows costs. I saved the whatever else cost of the data center, that little widget in the data center. It solves so many other problems. There's such a interconnected trickle down impact, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so you also find, in my expectation, my experience, is you also find technical debt. You find things that should have been decommissioned, software, hardware, you should have decommissioned them months, years ago. And you have this, aha, I didn't know this was still here kind of moments. And people now say, okay, we save hardware, we save software, we save support costs on that piece of hardware, piece of software that we should have decommissioned long ago. And if we could have, to your point, we could have reallocated those resources to something we think is important, but it's wasted.
Yep. Exactly that.
And so, yeah, it's one of those things that it's a complex. Microsoft is very complex, and the move to everything cloud, 365, Azure, all of that is going to make, I think, it's going to push the focus on the optimization on the cloud side, where we're worried about licensing and all that stuff on the on-prem side. This cloud side and optimization, are we using all the infrastructure we're paying for? Like how many cores, all that stuff. And it's an interesting conversation we're about to start having in the coming days, months, years.
Yes. Yeah, it's already started. It's already started. FinOps is growing on a daily basis.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And Microsoft, as you just said, I'm sometimes reluctant to proclaim it because people dismiss it straight away. Like, don't tell us that. Microsoft is one of the most complex vendors, if not the most complex one. And I've heard it recently from a person who knows Oracle. He tried to study Microsoft. He was stunned by how much complexity there is. Another person who's an good IBM expert, he looked at Microsoft licensing. He was absolutely just, what's the one I'm looking for? I would say, I would understate it to say he was a bit impressed.
He was flummoxed. How about that word? But I think what Microsoft did, which is pretty impressive, is to make something look easy, straightforward on the outside. But when you cut into it, it's complex. It has strings attached. It has other details, other dependencies that you don't see from the outside. And I think that's what Microsoft did. Where Oracle, SAP, we're all like, no, with our hands out because we know it's complex. Microsoft gives you this, oh, these are straightforward. These will be easy to understand. You can do it with your in-house staff. And it's really not the case. It is really not for many people. For many people.
There are still a few gray areas in Microsoft licensing, which nobody has answers to. We're guessing. Even Microsoft are guessing. But we're not going that way today. So,
all right. So, Alexander, you have been a great guest. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. If the audience says we love this blend of this Russian and British English accent. We want to get in touch with him because he knows what he's talking about for Microsoft. How can they get in touch with you, Alexander?
So it's two ways. The easiest way, actually, I think these days, if you're on LinkedIn, and everybody seems to be on LinkedIn, just search for my name, Alexander Golev. I'm there, and I accept almost every connection request, unless you are a Forex trader or something. And the other ways, you can find me on YouTube. The channel name is Some Expert TV. Just search for it, and it'll be there. I have right now about 90 videos on the topics of Microsoft and around Microsoft. I do weekly, maybe one day I'll start doing daily live shows. And I'm happy to see you there. Please send me your comments, because all I put online is driven by the community or something that happens to me in real life. I'm not a theorist. I'm a practical person. Some question arises from a project that I'm on, or somebody asks me that on LinkedIn. And on a daily basis, there are sometimes 10 to 20 questions people just ask about licensing, just general advice. And you can see the trends, and that's what I publish.
Yes. And the trends change.
Jeffrey, thank you very much.
And the other
thank you very much for having me.
Yes, I have to. The other thing is your YouTube channel's growing rapidly, and you post those videos on LinkedIn, so people get value with the connection to you. And you are there to available to help them on their Microsoft problems as a consultant, and have, whatever on that note, whatever they need. Because you are a Microsoft expert, and we thank you for sharing your knowledge. Have a great day, Alexander.
And you, Jeffrey. Thank you very much. Thank you.